Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I'm here with wet hair because I just got out of the shower, but I gotta get filming, so we're gonna see it dry throughout this video. But today I am here with a Grey's Anatomy video. This is kind of weird, I don't know. I'm actually so insanely excited to talk about this show because this is a show I really liked in high school, but I never made it past season 11, and I feel like that's a normal spot where a lot of people stop watching the show because we know what happens around season 11. But over the summer, I was going through a little bit of a rut, and I was like, you know what's gonna make me feel better? Restarting Grey's Anatomy from the very beginning and watching all 20 seasons. So that is exactly what I did. It was the best experience of my entire life. I had so much freaking fun, and I'm so excited to talk about the Halloween episodes. I do want to mention that there will be a Pretty Little Liars Halloween episode discussion as well. Neither of these videos are going to be super high quality. They're more just like chill discussions just because Halloween is tomorrow. And I want to get both of these videos up just for fun, but I'm not going to have time to put a lot of time editing it. What? Do you like my Hello Kitty mug? So cute. I have my little spooky witch earrings in. So spooky wooky. Alright, without further ado, let's get into it. There are 5 Halloween episodes in Grey's Anatomy, but one of them isn't necessarily Halloween. It's the Day of the Living Dead. I just meant Day of the Dead. Oopsies. But I included it because it has those spooky vibes and it's like similar to Halloween, you know? Okay, I'm back. I had to brush out my hair because I just could not stop looking at it and fucking with it. So now let's get into it. Oh, also I'm gonna rank the episodes at the end and I would love to hear your rankings in the comments as well. A couple quick disclaimers before we get into it. There are some parts where I stumble over my words, like I will say he when I mean to say she. Look, there was a lot I had to say. I'm not perfect. I'm not going to correct every single time I did that because there was a handful of them. The other thing is, sometimes I use characters' first names and sometimes I use their last names. This one was tough because they're kind of used interchangeably, like people will say Owen, but people also just say Hunt because they're doctors and they use their last names all the time. But for some reason, like, I'll always say Hunt, but then I'll say Amelia, and there's no rhyme or reason for why I did this. I just did that without thinking. So don't look into that at all. Okay, thanks. So first we start off with season 4, episode 5. Yes, it took them till season 4 to make a Halloween episode. This episode is called Haunt You Every Day. So season 4 is still like the peak of Grey's Anatomy. I think quality wise, after season 8, I wasn't enjoying it as much, but then after the events of season 11, things really started to go downhill. But I would say the whole show is worth a watch, regardless. But this is peak magic. Meredith, Alex, George, Izzie, and Christina. And I really loved the 5 of them as a crew when Alex started getting closer with them because I really love Alex as a character and I really liked him when he was an asshole as well. I'm also gonna be real, however controversial it is, I really love George and I really love Izzie and I understand all of the criticisms about them. I'm not gonna sit here and say that you're wrong for thinking that if you're thinking that. I agree. I just like them anyway. So Meredith is having literal flashbacks of her saying, pick me, choose me, love me, which is so real because I would be having nightmares about it if I had said that as well. And I remember seeing an interview where the actress was like she didn't want to say that in the show. So she's super hazy. It's clear that maybe Meredith is having a dream. She's walking down the hallway in the hospital. She's having memories back and forth with Derek. So it's okay, maybe they're not together at this point. Obviously, I'm just jumping into season 4, not remembering exactly what's happening in season 4. And then she's having memories of when she almost drowned in the bathtub, when she almost drowned in the river. She's having memories of her mom saying that she's so ordinary. She goes into the morgue in the hospital. She opens up a casket and it's herself, her eyes open, and she says, pick me, choose me, love me. Truly a horror movie. Then of course Meredith wakes up because it was only a dream. And we have a lot of dream sequences of Meredith throughout the show and I thought that they were kind of fun. In her voiceover, she says something about how they become surgeons because they want to cut away what haunts them. And throughout these voiceovers, she just gives a million and one reasons why we became surgeons. I say we Like, I feel like a surgeon at this point after watching this whole fucking show. So she gets out of bed, she takes the urn out of her closet, which holds the ashes of her dead mom. So remember, her mom has just died from Alzheimer's, but she didn't have a good relationship with her mom. Downstairs at the table, Izzie and Alex are carving pumpkins together, but they're not together at this time, they're just friends. They say that they couldn't sleep, so it must be like in the middle of the night when this is happening rather than in the morning. Meredith puts the ashes of her mom in a plastic bag, and Alex says, "Happy freaking Halloween." At the hospital, Christina is looking for a new apartment because she wants to move out of Burke's apartment. Remember the whole left at the altar situation? Honestly, I really, really loved her and Burke as a couple. I thought they were dramatic. I thought they were perfect for each other. I really liked Burke as a character. I hate the actor that plays Burke, but that's a completely different story. Weber wants to live in Christina's apartment because him and his wife are getting a divorce. And honestly, I love Adele as a character. I think she's hilarious. I think that she's an absolute saint to have lived with that man for so fucking long. Christina says that the place is all his. In the resident locker room, Meredith explains that she needs to get her mom out of the house because her mom is haunting her. Alex says, now she's haunting all of us. Meredith says she's putting her mom to rest. And Sydney, I fucking love Sydney. I also think that she's funny, but she just like randomly disappears at some point and never comes back. She says that Meredith is cleansing. Callie is chief resident at this time, and though I really, really love Callie as a character, I think she's hot, I think she's funny, I think she's amazing, I hated her as chief resident. She comes in and says that the pit is going to be super busy since it is a holiday and that it's going to be all hands on deck. Bailey comes in and she is super fucking excited and she's like, today is the annual chainsaw pumpkin carving contest, which means lots of people are going to be injured. Callie won't talk to Izzie because Izzie and George cheated on Callie. Remember, Callie and George are married at this time. Worst couple ever alert. Worst marriage ever alert. I swear to God, Callie has always deserved better, and George literally never even liked her. He just wasted her fucking time. Callie tells Izzie that she needs to direct all her questions to Bailey, and Bailey's like, why? And Callie announces to everybody, because she slept with my husband. And nobody else knew at this point, so everyone is looking at her like she's fucking crazy. Bailey looks pissed. Side note, I really love Izzie's eyeshadow. She always looks so pretty. Christina says, this is even more disturbing than your bag full of mommy. In the hallway, we see Lexie talking to a patient's daughter, and she is dressed up in a Halloween costume looking so fucking cute. I was so excited to see her on this rewatch because I forgot that she was in season 4, and she's got to be my favorite character of the entire show, I swear to God. Which is sad because nothing hurts me more than what happened to her in the show. A patient's daughter named Erin is fighting with her because I guess Lexie didn't get there in time to give him his meds, and then she doesn't think that her costume is appropriate, but the daughter is dressed up as a mouse and she explains that she is in childcare, so it is appropriate. I also forgot how like sweet and timid Lexie was at the beginning because she really grows into her own, and I like both versions of her character, but she doesn't really say a lot in this episode, which is disappointing because I just love her so fucking much. George tells Lexie that he likes her costume, and Lexie says something about Dr. Yang telling her to dress up, and George tells her that Dr. Yang is messing with her. Then Lexie is like, oh my god, and takes off her hat, revealing little pigtails. So cute. She also has all of these cute little freckles on her face. At the clinic, some man is telling Bailey that there is something wrong with his foot. He's in a nice suit and he looks like a completely normal person. He says, this foot is not mine, it does not belong with me or to me, and he's like really shuffling this foot on the ground as if it has a mind of its own. Bailey's not believing this, and he tells her that it's a corpse foot. Bailey still isn't believing it, and the guy is like, you have to believe me. I work at a bank. I'm a normal person. I'm not crazy. Because obviously nobody who works at a bank could be crazy. He wants a surgeon to remove his foot, and Bailey's like, you want a surgeon to remove your perfectly good foot? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, I don't think so. In the hallway, Meredith runs into Derek and drops her mom on the ground along with a bunch of binders, and this is such an iconic scene. The ashes go all over the hospital floor. This has got to be some kind of health code violation. It's actually kind of crazy. He asks her what that is, and she says it's charts. He goes, Meredith, and she goes, it's my mother. And in the cutest fucking tone ever, he goes, what? I love this scene so much. She says that having her mom and her cubby is freaking everybody out, so she's gonna put her in the car. And then she asks him if putting her dead mom in the car is disrespectful. And he's like ranting about how weird this is, and she's like, cubby or car? Cubby or car? Then this random kid comes up to her and is like, are those really your mom's ashes? I seriously love this kid so much. He says that his mom works in the cafeteria and he's looking for Dr. Sloan. You can also see that like there is something up with his ears, so possibly that's the reason why he's looking for Dr. Sloan. In the next scene, Dr. Sloan is at the nurse's station talking to Nurse Olivia. Can we talk about the fact that she was called Sif Nurse? That's actually crazy. Anyway, she's pissed off. Another nurse comes up and they're like, we compared notes. Basically, you say all the same pickup lines, you do all the same moves, you do this and that. We all hate you. We formed a club against you. Nurses united against Mark Sloan. Absolutely hilarious, absolutely iconic. Derek then comes up and says, a kid is looking for you. The kid comes out and is like, Daddy? Sorry, my camera cut off there for a second. And Mark has the craziest look on his face, but then Derek and the kid start laughing. Derek hands him some money, so it's clear that, like, it was a joke. But something like this literally does happen, except just with, like, an adult woman later on in the show. So it's not that far off. I was literally kicking my feet watching this video, or this episode, and I feel like it's going to be hard for me to like any other episodes more than I like this one. The kid says, you're not my father, but I hope you will build me some ears. There's also an intern named Norman, which I totally forgot he was even a character in the show. He's played by the dad from Gilmore Girls, and he's really annoying. I didn't like him at all. He is the super old intern that Alex is in charge of, and he was like finding it hard to be mean to him at first because of the fact that he was so old. Norman says that he wants to go home because he's not feeling well, and Alex gives him a really hard time, like, you're gonna be a surgeon. Surgeons have to stand on their feet for hours and hours and not have bathroom breaks and not eat and whatever. He goes to help a patient behind a curtain, but when he opens the curtain, it is Rebecca. I also fucking hate Rebecca. I love the actress that plays her. She is the same actress that plays Esme from Twilight. Love her. Hate Rebecca. She says something about it being Halloween, and the only thing she wanted to dress up as was Ava. So she was a patient of Alex's in the previous season. She had been very injured and couldn't remember who she was, so they gave her like this whole identity as Ava. But then it turns out she has a whole family and a husband, and her name is Rebecca. So she had to go with them, even though her and Alex fell in love. I hate them together. They start making out. So meanwhile, Sloan is trying to figure out if he can help this kid by building him ears. It turns out he has all the internal equipment necessary for hearing. It's just like the outer part of his ears that is the issue here. The kid hands him a bunch of letters of people like that are on his side trying to convince Sloan to do this pro bono. Sloan tries to say no just because of all the resources necessary to do a pro bono surgery, but the kid really tries to guilt him into it. He says 3 different people thought I was wearing a costume today, and Meredith is in the room and she's like, oh, you're good. Sloan says that even if he wanted to help, he has no social capital to make this happen because all of the nurses hate him. But Meredith says that she has social capital because a lot of people loved her mom, and so maybe she can make this happen. The kid asks if these people who loved her mom knows that she is carrying her mom around in a plastic bag. Meanwhile, Rebecca and Alex are still making out, and now they're hooking up in one of the rooms, you know, like with the beds. What are those called? On-call room. She's basically pissed off that Alex never came back for her, and now she's coming back for him, and she's basically being a beggar for Halloween. And he's like not even talking to her about anything. He's just like, yeah, like smiling, like making out with her, like not really taking it seriously. Meanwhile, Bailey is talking to Psych, you know, that one guy that is like the only person that works in Psych, trying to get a diagnosis for this guy who says that his foot is haunted. And the guy's basically like, anti-anxiety meds, that's the best I can do. He diagnoses him with body dysmorphia. So then Bailey tells this to the guy and is like, this medication is going to help you, and says that no surgeon is going to do what he's asking them to do. Meredith goes to Weber, who is the chief at this time, and tells him about the earless boy. She says, I have an earless boy. She wants him to donate the OR and all of the equipment, but he's also saying like, no, I can't really do that. But then the kid comes in holding a pillowcase and says, trick or treat. Meredith says, get it? He's trick or treating. For ears. She also says that her mom is really big on pro bono surgery, which gets him to agree to it because of the love that he had for her mother and the affair that they had and everything. Whatever. So then this woman comes in on an ambulance and she has a smashed head because someone threw a brick through her window, and she's wearing a mouse costume, so George realizes that it is Erin, the daughter that was yelling at Lexie earlier in the episode. In the pit, Bailey is excitedly helping somebody who was from the chainsaw contest, and he had sawed off one of his fingers. But he's like, oh my god, I still have the finger, but it's still in the chainsaw. So he goes down to look at his chainsaw, which for some reason he was allowed to bring into the hospital. I'm not really sure what that was all about. And the chainsaw is gone. They then hear the chainsaw going off in the distance to saw off his foot, and it's very bloody and very gory. Callie and Sloan try to fix this foot, but Callie says that it's unsalvageable, which honestly is making the other guy happy because he does not want this foot. She also looks so fucking beautiful. I can't even believe it. Well, I can't believe it, but you know. Norman looks really sick and says that severed limbs don't sit right with him. Sloan is sympathizing with Callie about her marriage falling apart, but is basically insinuating that he wants to sleep with her. I love their friendship so much. This has got to be one of the best friendships in the entire show. Weber, Izzie, and George tell the man that his daughter has passed away, but Weber says that she is an organ donor and that her heart can actually be directed to him because he has been waiting for a heart in the hospital. Honestly, I remember this as being one of the most fucked up, patient storylines, because what the fuck? The man is obviously super emotional and does not even want to hear this right now. Meanwhile, Sydney, the queen that she is introducing herself to Derek and being super flirty with him. Meredith watches this happen and she asks the kid if he thinks that she's pretty, and he says yes because he likes cheerful people. She says that she could be cheerful. He says that the ashes thing makes this a bit unlikely. Meredith then asks Bailey if she will donate her time for the surgery, and Bailey says no because of the whole chainsaw incident and the fact that she wants to see her son Tuck, who's only 1 year old, in his Halloween costume this year. She also mentions that she promised her husband, who I forget what his name was. Oh, Tuck. His name was also Tuck. That she was going to be there, and they're having all of these marital problems about the fact that she works so much. But the kid comes up and says, trick or treat. Bailey looks at him funny and is like, for ears? He's trick or treating. For ears. And then she agrees to help in the surgery. The old man sees the body, I guess, of his daughter. She's on life support at the moment, and he agrees that she can be an organ donor because that's what she wanted, but that he was not going to take the heart. And I feel like this is valid. I don't think I would want to take the heart either. In the cafeteria, Christina tells Meredith to sprinkle her mom's ashes off the roof, and Meredith is like, my mom was afraid of heights. And Christina's like, well, the ashes aren't afraid of heights. Meredith also says that she needs to put her mom to rest so that she doesn't become her. The relationship between Meredith and her mom might be one of the most heartbreaking things of this show, to be honest. She also tells Christina that she needs to not attend the wedding of Derek Shepherd and Sydney Heron. I think it's pretty obvious that Sydney and Derek wouldn't work. He doesn't really seem interested. It seems like he has a pretty spot on type. I mean, I wouldn't say that Meredith and Addison are that similar, but they have the same vibe about them. They're very forceful, get it done type of women, will not stand down. I mean, I feel like Meredith by the end, season 20, is very, very similar to Addison, but she changes a lot. Addison has got to be my second favorite character. She is my crush. She's so beautiful. It's just a shame that she wasn't in the show for longer than she was. George and Izzie sit down with Meredith and Christina. Meredith asks them if they're together now, and George says yes. Meredith asks if it's sexy love, not sibling love, which is valid, and Izzie says yes. She also admits that they've only slept together once and that they're waiting to be together out of respect for Callie's feelings, because we know George cares so fucking much about Callie's feelings. I know it makes me seem like I hate George. I hate a lot of things about him. I think I liked him in season 1, And he has his moments here and there, but oh my fucking god, he does a lot of shit. Christina gets up dramatically, and Meredith's like, she's not judging, but she is judging. And Meredith also wishes them the best. Alex is still sleeping with Rebecca. Now they're literally sleeping, and he is ignoring all of Norman's pages. Rebecca is trying to talk to him about the status of their relationship, but Alex is basically ignoring this and falls asleep. Queen Dr. Hahn has come for the heart, the transplant. Weber tells her that they're having trouble convincing the patient to take the heart, and she's like, I've never had trouble convincing anyone to take a heart. They normally don't need convincing. And Weber's like, it's his daughter's heart. And she literally just says, okay. Christina sees Dr. Hahn and immediately volunteers to scrub in on the heart transplant, but Izzie wants it as well. Hahn tells Christina that as much as she's so flattered by this, she dates men, and she doesn't think Yang is going to be able to impress her the way she has impressed all of her mentors in the past. Shots absolutely fired. Kind of true. Also iconic, knowing who Hahn ends up dating. Earlier, I date men. But Christina is confused by this, and Hahn flat out says, you sleep with them, right? Christina is like, what does this have to do with anything? And Hahn is like, well, if you had the chops in the OR, I don't think you'd be impressing anyone in the bedroom. And then she picks Izzie for the surgery. In the next scene, Christina is angrily pushing the bed of the guy who chainsawed off his foot, and she flat out calls him crazy. He says that walking through life with no control is crazy, and Norman, who's also there, says that no, he thinks it's pretty crazy to chop off your foot with the chainsaw. Dr. Hahn is talking to the old man about his daughter and asks if he's ready, and he's like, you would not have said that without any emotion if you had had children, so I know you are a single bitch that has no kids, basically. She tries to convince him to take the heart, and he says no. George takes his whack at trying to convince the man to take the heart. He says that he doesn't have any kids, but that he's lost a parent, and so he knows what that bond is like. He says that he could tell how much this man's daughter was fighting for him and his health and him getting a heart, and that she would have wanted him to have her heart, which I also do agree, because she was fighting tooth or nail at Lexie fucking Gray, the sweetest woman on the planet. He also says that he would have given his dad his heart if he had had the chance. I liked George's relationship with his dad, and I thought, like, his whole passing was really sad. Lexie looks so fucking cute, like she's about to cry, and then the man does agree to take the heart. Alright, he did not stick to his guns. In the stairwell, Izzie confronts Christina and is basically like, you're a hypocrite for judging me for sleeping with George because you slept with your boss. And Christina is saying that this is completely different. And I do agree that it's different. I don't know if it makes Christina necessarily that much better, but like a little bit better. Izzie says that she didn't mean to hurt Callie, and Christina is like, you slept with her husband. I slept with my boyfriend, which honestly true. Yeah. I'm not defending Izzie at all. But I just think that what Christina did was a little bit messed up too. Like, a little bit. But I still liked her and Burke together. And Izzie's like, well, Meredith slept with another woman's husband. And yeah, she did do that, but she didn't know that Derek was married. So that is also not the same thing. Izzie says that Meredith and Christina are like a closed circle, and they can commit whatever crimes they want in this circle, but no one else can do anything wrong. And I do agree with that. But there's nothing wrong with that. I love it. The Twisted Sisters. Sydney is still flirting with Derek, and we see other women looking at him like... She asks Derek if there are any actual shepherds in his lineage, and he is very confused by this question, but I think it's valid. It turns out that all of this is happening because Sloan put out the word that Derek is looking for a woman. Derek says looking, and Sloan says lookin'. It feels dirtier without the G. Okay. I love Sloan, he's so hot. Derek says, and you wonder why they formed a club. And Sloan is like, you heard about that? I love their friendship. I love their friendship so much. In the OR, Christina and Callie are laughing about the fact that Callie literally got married and didn't even notice that her husband was cheating on her. And Christina's laughing about the fact that Burke didn't even say goodbye to her and sent his mom to do that. Every time I think about Burke's mom, I just think about the eyebrow incident. Norman says that he's not feeling well. He's also in the OR, and he literally passes out within the OR. Alex is quite literally still in bed with Rebecca. We are 29 minutes into the episode at this point. He gets out of bed because he has been notified that something happened to his intern, Norman. Rebecca is disappointed that he's leaving because she still wants to talk to him about their relationship, and he is not taking the bait. Sloan and Meredith are scrubbing in for the kids' surgery together, and he is telling her that he's super impressed that she pulled it off, and she's saying that she's super impressed with herself too because this was her first time ever trick-or-treating. She said that her mom worked so much that she didn't have time to make costumes or show up for Halloween, and that she had told her that it was rude to knock on people's houses and ask for food. Sloan says that the apple fell pretty far from the tree, meaning that she is nothing like her mother, which I would have to agree with. I really liked their friendship as well. I thought that the moments they had with each other were very genuine, and I love the Dirty Mistress Club. Alex bursts into a different OR where Derek is performing surgery on Norman, who has had a stroke. In the other OR, the heart has been successfully transplanted into the man. Lexie asks George in the back of the OR if Meredith really brought her mom to work in a plastic bag, and he says yes. Norman is okay and is awake. Lexie and Meredith meet up in the hallway. Lexie says, "I just saw a heart transplant." Meredith says, "I just helped build a little boy some ears." Lexie says, "That's cool," and explains how she dug up her mom's cat after her mom died because she didn't know what else to do, and her mom loved this cat so much, so she buried the cat in the graveyard next to her mom. She says, "It was creepy and morbid, carrying around a dead, decaying cat into the cemetery in the middle of the night, but it made my mom really happy, at least I like to think it did." And Meredith says thank you. I love how nobody says hi or bye in this show. I think it's great, but they do this in Pretty Little Liars, and I always noticed it, and I always thought, like, that it was awkward. Bailey's family is mad at her for not coming home in time for Halloween, which is kind of understandable. George sits next to her on this bench and they have a heart-to-heart with each other. He says that he is sorry for disappointing her about his marriage, and she says that she's not his mom, and then he says that he needs to call his mom and tell her what happened. She says that what he did was unkind and hurtful and wrong, but that he's not a bad guy, and it takes two to reach a point in a marriage. But I feel like she's really just pushing out her own story when, like, George deserves most of the blame for what happened in his marriage. She speaks about the fact that she was doing a kind thing by staying at the hospital to build a boy some ears, but that her husband doesn't see it this way. Their whole marriage issue, I truly understood both sides, but I feel like he knew who he was marrying, and he is a little bit intense with her about her job. But she doesn't ever really put Tuck first the way that I see her putting Ben, like, of more importance, you know, when they get together later on. But Ben is better anyway, so whatever, it's for the best. Bailey then says that the whole situation isn't black or white because he saw when Callie and him came back from Vegas married just after his dad had died. So I do think this is actually a valid point. Like, George was in a very vulnerable state, and Callie shouldn't have said yes to getting married to him when he was in that state of mind, you know? But I do feel like we're trying really, really hard to justify the things that he's done and take the blame off of him in some sort of way when, like, he should just take responsibility for being a piece of shit. Like, they're trying so hard to make him seem like he's just Georgie, he's just nice, but he does these, like, really careless and weird things. Christina confronts Dr. Han and says that her comments were really unprofessional. She doesn't sleep with anyone to get to the top. She is simply just attracted to talent that resembles her own. I think that's pretty iconic. Dr. Han laughs and says this is going to be so much fun, and then Weber comes in and announces that Dr. Han has been hired as head of cardio to replace Burke. Christina looks shocked, and then she hilariously tells Weber that he cannot have her apartment. Alex apologizes to Norman for not listening when he was saying that he was sick and for ignoring his pages. Norman explains that he chose surgery because his late wife, Mary Beth, was pushing him to do this, and now he believes that she did this all along because he was going to have a stroke and she wanted him to be safe in a hospital with doctors who could save him. But now he doesn't want to be a surgeon. He says that he's going to go into psych instead because all of these surgeons are like little children running around with scalpels and they could use a good shrink. He really loves to yap, so this would be a better role for him anyway, and I'm not necessarily sad to see him go because I didn't really enjoy him as a character that much. I thought it was annoying. The kid wakes up and explains to Meredith that when his goldfish died, he brought him back to the sea and that the sea is better than a cubby. I really, really liked this whole interaction in this episode that Meredith had with this kid because it kind of shows like how innocent she is and how she doesn't really know how to do normal people things because her mom never taught her. And like taking advice from like a little kid who seems more mature from her than her is very interesting. But I feel like she does grow up in the show kind of all at once, and it kind of just goes from her being super childish to her suddenly being like the perfect mom and the perfect adult. Not like perfect, but like motherhood wise, you know, rather than it being a bumpy journey. I don't know how to really explain my meaning there. Meredith's voiceover says that everyone is haunted by something, not just surgeons. Alex goes to find Rebecca, but she's already gone. Izzie and George leave together because they're in love, apparently. I fucking hate them together, they're the worst. Callie is staying with Christina now. Weber runs into Meredith putting her mom's ashes down the sink in the OR, and he's like, "This is a sterile environment. What are you doing?" She says that this is where her mom would want to be, and he helps her put the ashes down the drain because it's the love of his life, so he's gonna let the rules slide at this point, I guess. They also bring this up in one of the newer seasons, which I really enjoyed. But that is the end. Not the spookiest episode ever, but a classic and a goodie. Like, I don't know if we can do better than this. But let's move on to our second episode, season 10, episode 7. So we're jumping all the way from season 4 to season 10. There was no Halloween episodes. What? You guys, let's do better than this. I haven't checked the Christmas episodes yet. I'm going to be doing a video on the Christmas episodes, but like, I feel like there's less Christmas episodes, but I don't remember. This one is called Thriller, and they go like really over the top spooky with this one, which I kind of appreciate, but like I don't know, it's a mixed bag. So we start off with very, very spooky music. Arizona is in bed with Leah Murphy. She is one of the like new interns, and I actually really, really liked her as an intern. Leah is getting out of bed and apologizing for sleeping over because they're supposed to be in a casual relationship, and she knows that Arizona doesn't want her to sleep over. Moving on to coffee. Ghost mug. Oh, that's just what I needed right now. Oh my god, it's so good. Obviously, hate these two together. Arizona is so mean to her, and then it causes a whole fiasco later down the line. Leah says that she really loves this dynamic and she loves being casual, but it's very clear that she does not actually mean this or believe it. Arizona offers her breakfast, but she says that she has to go find a costume for this thing at Joe's bar later today. Can we also talk about the fact that Joe from Joe's bar just simply disappears at one point and never comes back? Like, what happened to the man? He was such an integral part of the show. The fact that, like, there's still a Joe's diner, or bar, in holy shit, what's happening? In season 20, but Joe's not there. Where's Joe? We could have at least had an explanation. Meredith and Derek meet in the hallway, but they're obviously in love and married at this time. She hands him some purple butterfly wings and says that there's a tear in it, but she doesn't have time to fix it and that this is his job, essentially. He asks if they're still trick-or-treating tonight, and she says yes. I love them together, they're so cute. Alex is now living in Meredith's old house, so they run into each other and she asks if everything is set for the party tonight. As in, did he get everything ready? But he says yes. So he asks if he got the pumpkins, got the candy, put up the spider webs, and his answer is no to all of these things. And so she's like, how did you get the house ready then? I thought that was cute. I also love their relationship. He says that he got the keg. This is a kid's party, let's remember. Christina overhears this and Alex leaves, and Christina asks Meredith if she's having a party. She says that yes, she asked Alex if the party could be there because kids don't trick or treat like in her and Derek's area since they live in the middle of the woods. Meredith is surprised that Alex didn't invite Christina and then gives her an invitation to the party, but Christina says no. Meredith is like, oh, you wouldn't want to be around kids hopped up on sugar anyway. Like, the vibe is very awkward and I very much hate it because it's supposed to be natural between these two. They are supposed to love each other. Christina says, right, because I hate children, in a sarcastic tone. Christina says that she loves Meredith's kids, and then it's clear that Mare's like feeling bad about the fact that she wasn't invited. Their relationship just started off so strong, so I hate to see the points where it's so strained. In the voiceover, Meredith explains that she's trying to be a superhero for Halloween this year. Stephanie comes up with her boyfriend, Jackson Avery. She has just gotten LASIK surgery, so she's wearing these really crazy glasses. This is another intern that I really learned to enjoy, but I thought she was annoying at the beginning. Jackson Avery has his moments, but I think he's kind of annoying. She is supposed to be recovering from her surgery, but she says that she can't stay home anymore and that's why she wanted to come to work. She asks Joe how things are going with Alex, and Joe says that she thinks things are really over by now and they're fighting because Joe pushed him to like see his father or something, and then like something bad happened. If you remember the details of this, let me know because I can't remember exactly what happened at this time and I wasn't gonna like spend the time to do all the research on it. If this was a more professional video, I would have, but this is just a fun discussion. Stephanie hits herself on the door on the way out, and Avery is like, hey, are you sure you don't want to go home? And she's like, no. Later, Hunt tells Callie and April that him and his girlfriend Emma broke up because she said that he wasn't ready for a relationship when he wouldn't talk about, like, him and Christina and like how the marriage didn't work out. They try to convince him that he is ready, but when he leaves, they agree that he's not ready. Callie and Arizona both have a costume ready for their daughter, and they're fighting over like which costume it's going to be and who's going to take her. But then Callie finally just says that she's not having this and that Arizona can take her. And I hate this. I hate when they're fighting. I loved them together so much, and I just hated when they were fighting. Weber is in a bed at the hospital and he's getting a procedure done, and he wants the second years to do the procedure, which Bailey thinks is crazy and is not on board with. There's also some really crazy Halloween music in the background that just doesn't match the vibe and is like really distracting. Miranda meets up with Ben, who is super into Halloween, much more than she is, which is interesting because we get a bit of a change in the dynamic later on by season 19 or something. But they're super cute and flirty, and then she's like, this holiday is for children. A patient gets rolled into the hospital complaining that somebody literally started eating his face, and Leah asks if it was a zombie. The person who was eating his face gets rolled in next, and everybody is surprised that he's still breathing because he was shot in the chest twice by the police into the heart. He then literally grabs Leah and bites into her neck so hard. It was actually kind of crazy and creepy. She has a huge bite mark on her neck, but she tells Joe and Stephanie that she's still in the running for doing Weber's surgery and that she's not going to let this stop her. But Bailey comes out of nowhere and there's this super creepy, ominous music, and she says that no, she's not going to be participating. She's like out of the running. This episode is definitely more like gimmicky and less rooted in reality than the season 4 episode was, but that's not super out of the ordinary for a Grey's Anatomy episode. Like, they do some random shit sometimes. Stephanie then finds a tooth in Leah's neck wound. Christina was paged by Hunt and walks into the room where the zombie guy is. He tells her to say trick or treat and she says no, and he says, you're no fun sometimes. So she says, trick or treat, what? I love her. And I actually kind of love them together at the beginning of their relationship, but he just got more and more fucking annoying. I hate Hunt so much. Love the actor though. She tries to tell him that the x-rays are backwards and he says that they're not backwards. His chest is just opposite. She's freaking out because she's been wanting to see this since med school, and he says that he knows and says happy Halloween. So that's kind of sweet. A dad then comes in with his little girl who is dressed up as a witch. She's having a stomach ache. Alex, being cute as ever with children, is like, oh, you didn't have a magic spell to fix this? And the little girl's like, no. She's worried that she's not going to be able to go trick-or-treating this year, but Joe explains to her that they do trick-or-treating on the peds floor and that she'll be able to do that at the hospital. Meanwhile, Jackson Avery is treating the guy with the zombie bite. He is freaking out about the fact that the guy did not die when he was shot in the chest. Jackson's trying to tell him that the guy is just crazy and that there's nothing to worry about. He asks April if it was rigor mortis, and April explains to him that zombies are not real, and then he starts to have a stroke. In the pit, Stephanie goes to see two people who is a son and a mom. The mom is really freaking out because she hates hospitals, but apparently she has like a bite from 2 months ago. When it's revealed, there's a bunch of bugs swimming in it, but it's really blurry at first because Stephanie can't see clearly because of her eyes. But when it focuses, it's a bunch of maggots, which is absolutely fucking disgusting. I could have lived my whole life not seeing that. She goes to tell Callie and Meredith about the maggots, And Meredith says that Stephanie shouldn't even be there after her LASIK surgery, but Stephanie says that she wants to be helpful. Meredith says that if she wants to be helpful, she can go to the store and buy her Halloween candy, which is fucking rude. Ben asks Derek if Derek has one of those little like head mirrors that doctors used to wear, and Derek explains that doctors stopped wearing these centuries ago. Ben explains that Tuck wants to be a mad scientist for Halloween, and Derek says that he has a brain in a jar. Ben finds the purple butterfly wings that Derek fixed and says that Derek should be ashamed of himself because he could do a running whip stitch way better than this. We definitely don't see enough of this relationship, and it could have been so good. Meanwhile, Meredith and Callie are trying to get the maggot woman to go to the OR, but she is freaking out and will not do it. Her son asks if they could literally, like, restrain her to make this happen. Meanwhile, Dr. Ross is trying to help an older woman, but she doesn't want to talk to him because she has a specific doctor that she talks to. She tells him that her doctor is Dr. Brooks. This is Heather Brooks. She died during the storm episode, which I believe was just a few episodes before this one, and that one was really traumatic too. Dr. Ross specifically feels guilt over this because I'm pretty sure he was the one that told her to go to wherever she died. So this whole encounter is like extra freaky deaky to him. She also has one creepy eye. He tells her that Heather is not there and that she's not going to be there, but the lady insists that Heather is going to be there and that she's always there. He goes to get Bailey, but when they get there together, the old lady is gone. She says, Murphy's bitten, Edward's blind, and you're bonkers. Another one down. Bailey leaves and the woman shows up again, but again refuses his services as a doctor and only wants to talk to Heather. This is low-key foreshadowing his mental breakdown a little bit. Meanwhile, Christina is confiding in Hunt that she's not sure if Meredith actually wants her to go to the party or if she just feels bad for her. She also says that her and Meredith used to just know what each other were thinking and that that's not really the case anymore, and ugh, that makes me so fucking sad. It's crazy. Meredith brings an eye mask to the lady who is freaking out and tells her that it might be easier if she can't see anything that's happening, and then she starts talking to her about Halloween and her son's past Halloweens and stuff, and the lady is super nice and they bring her to the OR. Meanwhile, Alex and Joe are talking and Alex flips out on Joe because he thinks that the dad of his patient is an asshole because he's always on his phone. Joe asks what his problem is and says that this dad is not his dad, which is a little bit intense if he's already mad at her about the dad situation. Weber fires Bailey off the case because he really wants to teach the second-year residents through his surgery, and Bailey just hasn't really been wanting to do that. Meredith and Callie are in the OR together, and Callie says that the maggots might have actually saved this woman's leg. Meredith says, well, remind me to send them flowers. And I think this is really funny, but I also think that her character changed so much into like one that cracks jokes because I just don't see season 1 Meredith saying something like that, but I don't know. Leah worries that she might have HIV and Stephanie worries that she might be blind forever. They're laying with their heads next to each other on the benches eating Halloween candy. Honestly, I really like their friendship and it does seem to mirror Meredith's and Christina's from season 1 a little bit, but it's just not enough. It's just not giving what needs to be gave. Oh, fuck. Meanwhile, Jackson and April are in surgery together, and he gets a freaked out text from Stephanie. He texts her back that everything's gonna be fine and that she's really pretty, and April laughs at this and says that he was never nice to her like that when they were dating. He says that maybe he's trying to be a better boyfriend now, which is honestly kind of fucking sickening. Weber asks Meredith to do his surgery now that he fired Bailey off the case, and she is pissed off because of the comment he made. So he made a comment about how she was the wrong person to be in charge of his health, but basically he only put her in charge because he thought that she would make an informed decision, like if he had to die, not to keep him on machines and stuff, because she wouldn't be so like emotionally involved, and he was disappointed with the fact that she was emotionally involved, but now he's apologizing for that. This scene is so insanely dramatic, but he wants her to help teach the residents. Alex and Joe talk more about the little girl's diagnosis and figures out that it might have something to do with the trip that she just took with her dad to Brazil. So they run over to where the little girl was laying, but the dad is on the phone distracted and the little girl is gone. Alex yells at the dad and says that this is super dangerous because the little girl's body isn't producing enough adrenaline. Adrenaline is important because it makes sure that your body doesn't go into shock. So if she gets scared, she could literally go into shock, and the dad is like, oh my god, she could get scared to death. Yes, yes, in fact, Ross tells Stephanie about this freaky old lady, and Stephanie kind of makes fun of him and says, oh, maybe she's a ghost. She explains that Heather was always taking in strays and that this woman might just be a homeless woman or somebody without insurance. And this is definitely reminding me of that episode where Izzie helped the woman in the parking lot that needed stitches. So the little girl witch is wandering around the hallways in the dark, trying to trick or treat. But she runs into the creepy old lady and she passes out. And the lady seems really nice, like she's trying to reach out to her to help her, but then she also collapses to the ground. This episode is super dramatic and theatrical compared to season 4's for sure. But I feel like the whole show gets so much like more theatrical. Like I've been trying to pinpoint what exactly it is about the show that changed so much, and it's really hard for me to put it into words. The maggot woman is a-okay and is feeling great after her surgery. She also convinces Callie to go to the Halloween party because there's only so many years that you get with your kids when they're young. Christina gets a text from Meredith that says, if you're coming to the party, can you bring cupcakes? If not, no problem. And I think it's funny because this is such a real text that you would get. Like, you're not trying to step on anyone's toes. Like, you're not really sure if they want to come, but you want them to know that you want them to come, but you don't want them to feel like they have to come. Like, oh, it's so exhausting. Christina is overthinking this. She's wondering if it's a problem if she goes, if it's a problem if she doesn't go. She's like, if I don't go, will someone else bring the cupcakes? Do I need to go to bring the cupcakes? Look at what's going on. Hunt says, don't overcomplicate it and just go to the party. Joe is talking to the little girl's dad and is saying that she's going to be okay. And the dad is feeling really guilty for bringing her to Brazil and says that he never would have done that if he would have known that she would get sick. And Joe says, like, don't worry about anything that Alex said. He is really good with children, but really bad with other people. And I think that just really sums him up as a person. That's a really good description. And it's just showing that the dad is not a bad dad just because he's busy on his phone. Obviously, he could be better. The guy who was attacked by a zombie is freaking out about being in quarantine, even though he's not in quarantine. He's just like out of surgery. April finally snaps at him by yelling at him. She says, you were attacked by a normal guy who took a bunch of drugs and went crazy. He didn't die because he has a condition with his heart is on the opposite side of his chest. The guy literally goes, that's random. April confirms that it's super random and it's not at all supernatural, but that maybe this is more scary than being a zombie in the first place, and the guy agrees. Meredith tells Ross that he won the contest to do the surgery on Weber, but he doesn't want to because he has another patient. Bailey comes home to her apartment that is completely decked out in Halloween decorations. I personally really love this because I feel like we don't get enough of her personal life. Like, seeing her home is really wonderful. Bailey is super impressed with Ben because of how happy Tuck is in his Halloween costume. Ben is doing his residency somewhere else. I forget exactly where, but he makes a comment about like how he isn't having a good time because he just really likes these family moments and wishes that he was at home more. But Bailey says that he cannot drop out of his residency, and he drops the bomb that he has already dropped out. Bailey is obviously super pissed about this. Back at the hospital, Leah is crying to herself about the fact that she might have HIV, and Arizona walks in. She comforts her by explaining that one time she pricked herself with a needle of a patient who had AIDS, which would be really scary. Meanwhile, Ross tells the old woman that Dr. Brooks is dead. He says that he knows Dr. Brooks was giving her asthma medication under the table, and the lady says that she never wanted Dr. Brooks to get into trouble for this. Dr. Ross says that he is her doctor now and gives her the medication, which I thought was really sweet. The woman says that Dr. Brooks is a really good doctor and asks if he's as good of a doctor, and he says that he isn't as good, but he will be. And I thought that was a really sweet moment and a good way to honor her as a character, even though I didn't really like her that much. I thought she was kind of annoying. Joe wants to tell Meredith the whole like dad situation, but Meredith says that she should not do this because Alex trusted her with the information. She tells Joe that Joe needs to figure it out because Meredith cannot take any stress from Alex because she already has enough on her plate as it is. Meredith is just like rude in this episode, but I do love how well she knows Alex. Back at Bailey's house, she is telling Ben that she needs some consistency because he like uprooted their whole life to go to this program, and now he's deciding that he doesn't want to be in it anymore. There's trick-or-treaters at the door, and she says, "Oh, trick-or-treat, you look so scary," in a super monotone voice that I thought was pretty funny. He tells her that he is more in love with her than the residency program, and she just like cannot believe this, probably because she always put surgery first. She says that she is super disappointed in him, and I'm pretty sure this is the start of all her OCD stuff that happens. Hunt calls Emma on the phone to explain why he wasn't ready to talk about Christina, and he accidentally calls her easy and then corrects himself and calls her simple and then says to forget about this message. At Joe's, Leah is dressed up as a cowgirl and she finds out that she does not have HIV or hepatitis. Stephanie is dressed up as a clown, which, let's be honest, is kind of a good representation of her character in this show, and she is still blind. Stephanie tells Jackson that she was stupid for coming back to work so soon, and he basically agrees with her and says yes, which is taking April's advice to not be like so overly kind, because April said, even though you were like kind of rude to me, like it really pushed me. He said that he was going to stay home with her and take care of her, and she asked if they can do this tomorrow, and he says we're going to do it right now. Callie and Arizona both show up at Meredith's Halloween party. Christina also shows up with the cupcakes, but she leaves the cupcakes and doesn't stay, which I thought was so heartbreaking. She then shows up at Joe's. Someone asks who she's supposed to be, and she says sexy, and then looks around, grabs a witch hat, and says witch. Also kind of an iconic moment. Ross then buys her a drink and they're like flirting. She's like super into it, and this is the start of their like little fling moment. I didn't really like them together either. Meanwhile, at the house, Alex is not handing out candy even though Meredith told him to. Before Meredith left, also I forgot to say, she saw the cupcakes, which was kind of a sad moment as well. Someone rings the doorbell, and when he goes to the door, Joe is dressed up as Tinkerbell, which is very, very cute. She apologizes to him for making a bad call about his dad, and he lets her in. This whole speech was through a glass door, and that is the end of this episode. Pretty good. I feel like I enjoyed the other one better, but they really like upped the spooky vibes, which did get me in the holiday spirit, which I enjoy. So we still have 3 more episodes to talk about, but I have to go to lunch, so I will be back after that. Just kidding, my lunch date got pushed back a little bit, so I'm gonna continue filming until she texts me that she's leaving, and then I'm gonna go. So let's see how far we can get into it. Next we have season 15, episode 6. So now we're jumping from all the way season 10 to season 15. They were not very consistent with the Halloween episodes whatsoever. This one is called Flowers Out of My Grave, and this actually isn't a Halloween episode. It is the Mexican Day of the Dead episode. Tucker is explaining the Day of the Dead to Bailey, who is drinking a green smoothie. She's like on her health grind at this point. In Meredith's voiceover, she is also explaining Mexican Day of the Dead. And then she says that at the hospital, death isn't something that is celebrated but feared. At Meredith's house, she is explaining that she has a date with someone who is either an English teacher or an English professor, and Maggie tells her that she needs to figure out which it is because there's a huge difference. I personally don't really like Maggie that much. I think she's kind of annoying, and the fact that she kind of replaces Lexie a little bit just pisses me off. Meredith tells Maggie that Teddy is planning on telling Owen that she's pregnant with his baby today, and Maggie's like, I'll believe it when I see it, because she's been keeping the secret for a long time. Teddy shows up at Owen's house, and they're just like smiling goofily at each other. I literally hate both of them, and I hate their relationship dynamic. At this point, Teddy doesn't even live in Seattle, and Amelia and Owen are back together, and they're fostering 2 kids. But before she's able to tell Owen anything, Amelia runs in screaming Betty's name, which is the older girl that they're fostering. So Betty had a baby, and like they're fostering both of them. Apparently Betty is not at school. She's also a drug addict. And I also really like the Betty storyline. I think it did wonders for Amelia's character. I really love Amelia as a character as well. Amelia is worried that she is off doing drugs, obviously, because she's a drug addict, just like Amelia used to be. Back at the hospital, Alex is chief at this time, which I totally forgot was the thing. I don't know how I would forget. He was chief for a long time, actually. Him and Joe are together at this time, and they are looking super fucking cute. She's also looking so baby. Joe tells Link that Alex has been super grumpy ever since he has been chief, and Link jokes and says that's just marriage, isn't it? Joe jokes to Link that he is just afraid of marriage, and I was kind of like, what? And then I forgot that they were trying to play up this like hot, baddie, like bachelor type vibe with him, which just like isn't what was giving by season 19. He says that he's not afraid of anything except global warming. I think the writing has gone very much downhill because none of these jokes are funny, but they used to be so good. Joe says that Meredith is single, and Link says that Meredith does not like him and that he already tried. Joe says that just because he looks like that, he's not used to putting in the work, And I just don't think he's that hot. Like they're trying to play him up like he's so hot, but I just feel like there's so many hotter Grace characters. I would love to know your opinion on this. Jo says that Meredith will like him eventually. Jo shares that she's doing her first ever solo liver transplant today, and he says to knock him dead, and then they both cringe at this really bad joke. And then she says that Meredith is a really tough nut to crack, but when she's cracked, it's worth it. Levi, who I believe is an intern at this time, then comes up to Link and says that he's on his service today. Levi tells Nico, who is his fellow, that he's never done ortho before, so he's nervous, and Nico smirks and says that he will show him. I actually really liked this pair a lot. I found it hard in the later seasons to really ship people together as much as I did in the earlier seasons, but this is one ship that I was like really feeling hardcore the entire time. Meanwhile, Bailey has a liver transplant who is basically planning her funeral with her best friend because she doesn't believe that she's actually going to get a new liver and that she's going to die. Bailey says that she does in fact have a liver for her. The patient says that she's been burned before and doesn't believe that this liver is going to actually be hers. It turns out that the liver did get diverted and the liver isn't hers anyway, so she was correct the whole time. Alex has a patient whose child is singing a Mexican Day of the Dead song and they're celebrating it. Correction, the patient is a child. The child's family is singing the song. Meredith is also in on this surgery. Weber then takes Meredith aside and says that he needs to talk to her. He asks when the last time she saw her dad was, and she says the last time was around the time when Lexie died, which is just heartbreaking. Remember when I said that one of the worst relationships had to be Meredith and her mom? Scratch that, because I think it might be her relationship with Thatcher. I will never get over this. I could not believe my fucking eyes when Thatcher Gray slapped her in front of everybody and nobody did anything. And that was after she gave him a kidney? Was it? Fucking insane. He tells Meredith that Thatcher is sick with leukemia and that he is on hospice and only has a few weeks to live, but that he's still sober. Meredith tells Maggie that her dad is dying, and Maggie asks if she wants to talk about it, and she says no, but then Meredith starts talking about it anyway. She says that Thatcher is such a bad father that she doesn't even know that she has a sister. Speaking of Maggie, she says that he didn't even tell her himself that he was dying, and she asks who did tell her, and she says it was Richard of all people, which, yeah, that is kind of crazy that Richard of all people would be the one to know about Thatcher dying, considering his history with Thatcher. Jackson Avery comes in, and he is now dating Maggie, and he brings her coffee. Meredith goes, "Hey, you have a deadbeat father. How would you feel if he was dying?" And he misunderstands this at first and thinks that his deadbeat father is dying, but they correct him and say that no, this isn't the case. He says that he would be conflicted and he's not sure if he would want to say goodbye. Meredith says, well, that's not helpful, and leaves the room. And then Maggie tells him that her deadbeat dad is actually dying. Bailey finds out that one of her patients has died, but that he is a perfect blood match for her patient, who's a liver transplant patient, Roberta, the one that's planning her funeral right now. Jo basically says, well, that's a shame because this guy is already dead. Bailey asks how long he has been dead for, and someone tells her that it's been 7 minutes. She goes, great. 5-minute rule. And that's hilarious because first of all, it's the 5-second rule, and also what? And she starts doing CPR on him. I actually thought it was really funny, and I really love when she does off the rail shit like this because she spends so much of the show being so straight-laced and controlling over everybody, but then she just like kind of turned into more of a loosey-goosey, like funny, does whatever she wants type of character, and I really enjoyed those parts of her a lot. Jo says that his heart has already stopped, so his organs are essentially useless, but Bailey is not having this at all. She is pretty determined to start his heart again, and I guess this is kind of like the spooky element of this episode. Bailey says that she's been reading these articles of people who have brought like livers back to life in real people, and that she's determined to make this happen for her patient, but she has never tried it before herself. Meanwhile, Meredith is chilling when Link comes up to her and asks when she is going to let him take her out to dinner. She has a super like funny, not interested face. Meredith says, I have a matchmaker who has a list, and he asks how he could get on that list. I never really shipped them together. I feel like they have really opposite personalities and they wouldn't work well, in my opinion. She says, you're not the kind of guy that's on the list. He asks what kind of guy he is, and she says, you're the in an emergency kind of guy, which is absolutely sickening. Meredith asks for the story between him and Joe and asks if Alex has anything to worry about, and he kind of counters that and asks for the story between Meredith and Alex and asks if Joe has anything to worry about. And I just think it's crazy that this gets brought up so much in the show, like if Meredith and Alex have anything, because I think it's pretty fucking obvious that there's no romantic interest between them, and I love their friendship so much. I might even love their friendship more than her and Christina. Like, it's so good. And it's wonderful that they never do have that romantic vibe, because we don't get that really with anyone else. Like, even Joe and Link end up dating later on in the show. Bailey and Joe have successfully brought the liver back to life, and it's in this like clear plastic box. So here's another little creepy element to the episode, I guess. Bailey screams, "It's alive!" which is definitely giving Frankenstein. Joe excitedly tells the patient that the liver is viable and that she is going to be able to have her transplant surgery. Understandably, the patient is a little bit worried about this. She makes a joke about them fishing this liver out of the garbage and asks if Unos said that it was viable, to which Joe says that it hasn't been confirmed yet, and she's like, okay, I'm not getting this liver. And she starts planning her funeral again. She also gives her best friend this like really heartwarming speech about how she's planning this funeral for her so that she could just focus on grieving her rather than having to plan the funeral. And the friend like kind of listens and then says, great speech, but this doctor wants to know if you want a trash liver. And they laugh, and it's a super sweet moment, and then she says that yes, she does want the liver. Meanwhile, Dr. DeLuca is going to bring the little kid up to surgery. He is my king. I literally love him so much, and what they did to him in this series is not okay. The girl is freaking out about the fact that he is going to be in her surgery and see inside her stomach because she has a crush on him. He notices that she doesn't really want him there. He makes up an excuse as to why he won't be in the surgery, and that's really sweet because at this point, like, he really needs the practice and he probably should be in the surgery, you know? Meanwhile, Nico is flirting with Levi and asks Levi if he has a boyfriend. The tension is really cute between them. Levi says no and asks if Nico has a boyfriend. Nico says that he doesn't have a boyfriend because fellowship year is so crazy, but that he would be open to it. For some reason, I feel like Nico is giving like very inexperienced compared to all the other fellows that we have seen in the show up until this point. He just isn't like very confident, and I'm not really sure why it's giving that. Bailey and Joe show Alex the liver, who is very excited and proud until he hears out that Unos did not confirm the liver. He wants to make sure that they did not promise it to a patient yet, and of course they already have. He says to shut it down because he's super worried about this ruining the reputation of the hospital, and he's really fucking boring ever since he became chief. Meanwhile, Meredith and DeLuca are talking about the little girl and the fact that it's so cute that she didn't want him to see inside her stomach. I personally really like them together. I mean, obviously her and Derek are a lot better, but I feel like as a close second, I really like DeLuca more than any of her other love interests, and more than the guy that she's with right now as of season 20. I don't like him for some reason. I don't know why. Okay, but now it's time for my lunch plan, so I will be back to finish it off later. Okay, hi, I'm back. I had so much fun, but I really want to finish this. I took off like the makeup on the bottom half of my face because we need to let the acne out. So I also changed my shirt. We're back. And I'm leaving again soon, so I want to get this filming out of the way before that. I'm just having a crazy day, actually a really busy week, but I'm confident that I can do everything, apparently. The earrings are really out and about. They're really shining. Alright, where did we leave off? So DeLuca is really flirting with Meredith and was saying how he was really excited to work with her, and she says that there will be other opportunities to work together. Link is working on the case of a little boy, but Levi finds a mass even though he was simply there for a broken leg. Jackson wanted to bring Maggie lunch, but he couldn't decide what to bring, so he brought 1,000,001 things, including enchiladas and spaghetti and meatballs. She says that he didn't have to do all this, but he says that he did have to do all this because he's been a bad boyfriend. She says that she literally can't eat any of this because she's feeling a little sad right now. I'm guessing this is about her mom that has just passed away. I really hate them so much as a couple, and I literally can't even stand Maggie anyway, which I already said before. I don't necessarily like hate her as a person, she just kind of bugs the fuck out of me. Oh, that's better. There was like a crazy buzzing noise outside that was driving me wild. He leaves, but he takes her spaghetti on the way out. Alex is making fun of DeLuca for not doing the surgery. He says, if I backed out of every case when someone fell in love with me, but Meredith interrupts him and calls him evil spawn, which was very nostalgic and I loved to see. Alex brings up Thatcher while they're in the surgery together and says that she should spend some time and go say goodbye, and that she should take as much time as she needs because he can give her the time off now that he is chief. Alex says that even though he had a deadbeat dad, he did get the opportunity to say goodbye to him before he died. Meredith asks if this makes all of the bad things that he had to go through better though. She said that she gave her dad a piece of her liver and that she kept the door open so that he could form some sort of relationship with him, and that he never took the opportunity, which is so true. She didn't deserve any of the shit that this man put him through, and I feel like he was almost painted as the nice guy in the situation, and her mom being the evil one. And I think that she definitely wasn't good to him, but he didn't try at all with Meredith and just cared about his new family basically. But then he wasn't even good to Lexie after his new wife died. She explains that the only time they even spent together was because of Lexie, and then after Lexie died, she never saw him again, and that she doesn't really need to grieve him because he's been a ghost this whole time. There's another little spooky description. Meanwhile, Joe is complaining to Link that just because Alex is chief, he gets to decide what she does at work, and Link is kind of like, well, that's exactly what a chief is and what his job is. But she says that he bends the rules all the time for his patients and that she should be able to do the same, which is true. He also tells Joe that he tried it again on Meredith and that she brutally rejected him. Joe said that Meredith did this to her for the first 2 years as well, which is so true. Meredith was so mean to her, but I feel like they have a really nice relationship near the end of the show. Meanwhile, Hunt and Amelia still cannot find Betty. Teddy thinks that they should call the police, but Hunt is like, no, my mom freaked out like this on me when I was a teen and I was just at my girlfriend's house. And Amelia's like, well, I did this to my mom and she called the police, and if she hadn't have done that, I would have died. Can we also just talk about how absolutely heartbreaking Amelia's entire story is? I think her story is so great. I think she is such a great character, and I really want to watch Private Practice just to get more of her backstory, because I think that the actress does a really good job with her as well. I also really love how much of a superfan the actress is. Amelia says that she needs an AA meeting, so Hunt says that he's going to bring her there, and Teddy decides to stay there in case Betty comes home. And when they leave, she mumbles that, oh, and I'm carrying your baby, but obviously no one hears because they're gone, and she still hasn't told anyone. At the hospital, the little girl's family, who's celebrating Day of the Dead, has a bunch of pictures of their dead relatives, and Meredith is looking at them and says that she's sorry to the grandmother. The grandmother says not to be sorry because all of these people are there with them now. She explains that all the marigolds that are there to help guide the spirits, and that the veil between the spirit world and our world is very thin. So that's also a spooky part. Meanwhile, Bailey finds out that the liver is viable and tells Joe to book an OR even though Alex isn't gonna like this. Meanwhile, Meredith goes on her date and she just rants to the guy about her dad the entire time, and she rants about how why is it always the child's job to forgive the parents. She also says that she's not gonna put her children through another death just to make her dad feel better. Meanwhile, Link has to explain to the mother of the kid with the broken leg that he has a tumor, and she is totally freaking out, and he explains to her that he had the same diagnosis as a kid and that he's okay. She says, so you had it and you survived it? And he responds with, unless I'm a ghost. There's another spooky element. Clocked. He also makes a joke about how the scary part was losing his hair because look at his hair. The kid asks Link if he's going to lose all of his hair and if he's going to look weird, and Link takes the scissors and cuts his own hair in solidarity. He then gives the scissors to the kid so that he can help him cut his hair. And the mom takes the scissors and is like, oh, you can't cut his hair, it's so beautiful, despite the fact that he already janked up his hair. In the OR, Bailey and Joe are successfully getting the liver to work in their patient, but Joe looks up to see Alex in the gallery and he is super pissed off. DeLuca is checking back on the girl that has a crush on him, and she is asking him all of these super cute questions like, what's his favorite movie? What's his favorite food? Does he have a girlfriend? And he says no, and the grandmother laughs at her. Owen and Teddy finally sit down to talk about Owen's new situation with baby Leo and Betty and all the adoption and stuff, but Teddy still does not tell him about the pregnancy. In the hallway at the hospital, Meredith sees Link and asks what happened to his hair, and he simply says, a cancer patient, and then puts his number in her cell phone for an emergency. This is when DeLuca joins them, and he compliments Meredith on a marigold that she has in her hair. I'm pretty sure this is the beginning of the little love triangle that they have going on, where DeLuca is clearly the main interest the whole time, time because she clearly doesn't like Link, but she doesn't really reject DeLuca in the same ways that she keeps rejecting Link. DeLuca is just so much better for her in so many different ways. As they're waiting for the elevator, DeLuca asks Meredith about her date, and she says that she scared the guy off. I love how it's just like in the middle of her workday or something because she went back to the hospital after her date. When the elevator opens, DeLuca and Link both hold it open for her, and like they kind of stare at her. She stares at them, and she's like, I'm gonna go take the stairs, which is a joke that they use in Grey's Anatomy all the time for some reason. It's getting a little bit old. The two of them get in the elevator alone and look at each other super awkwardly. In another elevator, Levi and Nico are getting on together. Nico goes up to Levi and starts like touching his white jacket, which is like kind of hot, not gonna lie. And then they start making out. I love a good Grey's Anatomy makeout sesh. Can't complain. Levi is like convulsing in the corner when it's over and like someone else got in the elevator, but then the person gets off. Nico ends up apologizing and saying like, I'm sorry, that was so abrupt. And Levi says that it was perfect. But he tells Nico that it was his first time, and then he says, first time doing ortho. And he has like a super cute dorky smile on his face as he says this. But then Nico is like, it's your first time, it's your first kiss. And he tells Nico that he's a really good teacher. And he clarifies that it was his first kiss with a guy. Nico literally says, wow, fucking rude. He says, I'm sorry, dude. If I would have known that, I never would have ... And Levi says, you said you would teach me. And this is definitely giving like Lexie and Sloan vibes with the whole teach me thing. My heart aches for them. He says that he's basically done his coming out stuff already and he doesn't want to go through that again, which is valid, but he's not giving Levi a chance to like explain himself. Like, I don't know, maybe Levi isn't worried about coming out or whatever. Nico leaves the elevator and Levi screams, I thought this was a teaching hospital, which is funny because he's so serious about it and it's like, okay, he doesn't have to teach you like how to be with a man. Alex and Joe are fighting. And Joe says something along the lines of, I'm sorry, but you can't tell me what to do in the OR. And he's like, that's literally my job. She's been saying this all fucking day. I'm sorry I got in the way of your chiefness. But then they start making out and she's like, I thought we were fighting. And he was like, yeah, but I kind of found it hot what you did, like bringing a liver back to life. And then someone yells that they're not in a private space and that they can see them through the window and they shut the blinds. Can we also talk about how many fucking chiefs there has been in this hospital? I want to do a whole video just on like what things each chief did in their roles and whether or not I liked them as chief. We can admit that Weber was the best chief and that everyone else kind of flopped a little bit. Like, I might even like Alex most as chief other than Weber because, like, everyone else, I don't know, everyone just gets so boring when they're in the chief role and, like, Weber was just that way from the start, so you don't, like, expect anything different of him. Maybe that's what it is. And he's just so, like, authoritative. Like, it just makes sense for him. A Spanish version of How to Save a Life starts playing. Maggie is looking at a picture of her mom to honor the Day of the Dead. Then we see a literal ghost of George and a ghost of Lexie, which I do not remember this happening on my first watch, so I clearly wasn't paying very close attention. Her mom watches her and smiles sweetly, like as if she's a nice lady. Her dog, Doc, is there. Rest in peace. Her husband, Derek, is there, and so is Mark Sloan, but she, of course, doesn't see any of this. I actually thought this was very cute for, like, Mexican Day of the Dead, rather than, like, making it super spooky, but the whole, like, it's alive thing was giving Halloween. She ends up going to Alex's, and Joe is cutting Link's hair, and Meredith takes over. Joe tells Alex that they look super cute together, and that is the end of the episode. Alright, we have 2 left, but I feel like the writing just gets so shitty by the end of the series that I don't have as much written down, so I think we're gonna get through it like fairly quick. Our next is season 16, episode 6, titled Whistlin' Past the Graveyard. We start off with Meredith being asleep in jail. Remember, she literally went to jail because of fraud, like insurance fraud. The show just kept getting so outlandish as it went on. Someone wakes her up and says Happy Halloween and that she snores so loud that she cannot sleep. Meredith says that she's counting the seconds because she's getting out today, and the other lady says, like, me too, because then I'll be able to sleep. This is also a really weird prison set, in my opinion. Hunt brings Teddy a bunch of costumes that his mom made when he was young, and these two are together at this point. Ew. In Meredith's voiceover, she says that nightmares are brought on by stress. The next scene, we are in Joe and Alex's apartment. She asks them for help with her dress, and then tries to scare him, but he doesn't even flinch. She's disappointed, and he says that nothing is scarier than his real life. So right now he is the chief at a new hospital, Pac North. I hated this. I hated when they were all working at Pac North. It was just very divided and very strange, and I hated when everyone was fighting with each other. Apparently he's stressed today because a bunch of investors are coming to the hospital and he really needs the funding for like some renovations that he's doing. Alex asks why she is in her wedding dress. She also has like a painted face, so she's trying to be like a corpse bride or something. She says that she's going to wear it every single Halloween because it was so expensive. I really, really love them together. I thought they were a great couple and maybe even Alex's best couple. She also says that she has the day off. At Meredith, Zola asks Maggie why her mom hasn't called from sleepover community service, because remember she was originally just doing community service and then she went to literal jail. I remember thinking that that was pretty cute that she didn't know that Meredith was in jail. Maggie says that she's probably just busy and that it's not like a regular sleepover with friends. Then DeLuca is there to bring the kids to school because Meredith and him are dating at this point. He tries to help Zola with her purple butterfly wings, and it kind of just like clicked in my brain that this was the same wings from the last episode that Derek fixed up, or not the last one but the one before that. She freaks out and says that he is not her dad. Obviously broke my heart for obvious reasons because he's so sweet, but then it's like Zola's dad just died and it's like depressing, or not just, but you know, still. Levi's mom is acting homophobic and doesn't want Levi to post any photos of him and Nico at their Halloween party, or like Halloween costumes or whatever. Him and Nico are together at this point. At Pac North, Alex is showing the investors the hospital. They watch some kid get candy corn taken out of his nose and then immediately eat it, just giving like janky vibes at this hospital. Someone alerts Alex of an issue and then Weber takes over with the tour because he is also at Pac North at this point. Back at the other hospital, Amelia and Bailey are bonding over the fact they're both pregnant. Bailey is super duper freaking out and Amelia is like kind of cool and calm and collected about it. Bailey is acting like she literally knows nothing about being pregnant, which is crazy because not only has she been pregnant before, this is her second time, she is also a surgeon. Like, hello. But this is a super cute moment between them, and Amelia gives her some coping skills. Amelia gets invited by Link to lunch with his parents who hate each other, and she's not excited about this, but it is his cancer-versary, which is the day they found out the scans were clean after his cancer, and they celebrate every single year. Link and Amelia are together at this point, and she's pregnant with his baby. He wants to tell his parents about the baby, and she's worried because parents don't really like her normally. Meanwhile, Jackson has an 11-year-old patient who cannot stand being in UV light, like she gets burned in the sun. She has burns all over her arms, but her parents don't know how this has happened. She asks where Dr. Alex is, and he has to tell her that he is at a different hospital now. And the parents ask if this is because of the crazy article that came out about the hospital, because at this point, like, there's been so much bad press about the hospital that no one wants to go there anymore. She is upset that she can't go trick-or-treating, and Jackson says, don't worry, the hospital throws like a huge party, Halloween party, every single year. Levi says that there is no party this year because when Alex was chief, he put a resident in charge of everything, but I'm pretty sure Jackson is chief at this point. And nobody set up the party because no one was assigned it. And then Jackson says that Levi is going to throw the party. Back at Pac North, a worker shows Alex all of these bones that are underneath the ground. Back at the other hospital, Bailey is eating a chocolate bar, and she says they call these fun size. They'd be more fun if they were bigger. Back at Pac North, Alex tells Weber that construction has stopped because they found a mass grave. He doesn't know how to tell the investors this. Apparently, it is a burial ground from 100 years ago when the hospital used to be a mental asylum. Nobody came for the dead people, so they did a mass grave, and Weber says that they should not tell the investors this. But before that, he asks if this is a Halloween prank, which, like, isn't a thing. Weber tells Alex that he can take care of this and he will distract the investors meanwhile. Weber says that the hospital has felt very haunted, and Alex says that it's not haunted. Joe comes sauntering down the hallway, like, groaning and putting on this whole show, and no one is paying any attention to her, and the set is actually crazy. Like, it's so eerie, it's so low quality, like, it's giving season 1 of Grey's Anatomy, which I kind of liked, actually. Dude, I'm so starving right now. She is covered in fake blood, and Alex is not impressed at all. It's actually funny. But yeah, it's dim and dark, and they did a good job showing this. She's like, I'm a corpse. And he's like, well, that's a dime a dozen today. He's been finding lots of them. And then he tells her about the burial site. He then says Hunt needs help at the ICU because Hunt works there too. He needs her help. And she says, you know, I don't work here, right? Which is kind of funny. Like, she's in this like huge dress and she's just gonna like start working on her day off. Back at the other hospital, Karasik is there, who is actually my fave. I loved him so much. He says that there was a law in Canada, apparently, that you can trick-or-treat past 16. I didn't know about that. I don't know if that's true. Back at Pac North, Hunt sees Joe and asks what happened, and she says this is the correct reaction to her costume. Hunt says that everyone is randomly crashing, and Joe says this is because the hospital is haunted. Meanwhile, Amelia is meeting the parents at lunch and just keeps on nervously babbling. But the parents keep speaking of having news and like things working out a second time, and it's clear they have something to say. His mom then says that she's getting remarried, and Link seems like super happy about this, which is weird because this is the first he's hearing that she's even in a relationship. So he's like, I'm happy to meet him, and she says you don't have to, and starts holding hands with his dad. Back at the hospital, DeLuca is confiding in Jackson about the Zola thing, and Jackson says that, first of all, welcome to parenthood, and second of all, like, when kids do stuff, there's normally a reason for it, and you just have to figure out what's going on with her. Teddy and Bailey are working on a kid who got hit by a car together, but he was in a Halloween costume and they couldn't figure out like which injuries were his and which are fake and stuff. Teddy is confiding in Bailey over the costume situation, and Bailey is like, oh, what's Allison going to be for Halloween? That's her baby. And she says, a baby. Basically, she's insecure that Hunt's mom was like a military mom but still had time to like sew and like be the best mom ever, and she thinks that he is going to compare her, which is a heavy subject for me. I've never had a good relationship with partners and fucking moms. But it turns out Tom was there the whole time, and she's like, oh, sorry, I forgot you were there. I actually really like Teddy and Tom together for some reason. In jail, Meredith confronts a cop about why she isn't out yet, and he says that the paperwork is just late and that this happens all the time. She says that she needs to get out now because it's Halloween and tries to bribe the cop. She's like, does anyone in your family need any medical advice? And he says that he likes being on this side of the bars better. At Pac North, Alex overhears people talking about murder victims and says that nobody was murdered. Go back to work. At lunch, Link's parents are explaining that they were both on dating apps and kept getting matched up together and decided to give it a second chance. His dad asks him to be best man in the wedding, and he starts laughing. He says that they put him through hell with the divorce, with being on like both sides and stuff like that, and now they want to get back together after everything. But I feel like at this point, his entire personality is just about like the trauma that his parents put him through, and it's becoming a bit overkill. He says to Amelia that they are never going to do this to their kid, basically spilling the beans that there is a kid, and then tells them that they're going to be grandparents. At Pac North, Hunt and Alex are realizing that there's something up with the blood supply, and that's why all of the patients are coding, which is fucking crazy. The woman from the jail is explaining to Meredith why she was in there. So basically she had 3 kids, and she had 2 jobs to make ends meet, but one night her babysitter canceled and she still went to her night shift. But since she just worked down the block, she was coming back to check on the kids on her breaks and stuff. But at some point in the night, her kid woke up and called 911 and said that she wasn't there, and then she got sent to jail. When the cop arrested her, she like accidentally hit him in the face or something, and the cop arrested her for like assault. She can't afford bail, and now her kids are in foster care. Now Meredith feels dumb for like complaining about maybe losing her medical license this whole time. Link and Amelia go outside, and he tells her that he's not sure why he's so mad about this, because as a kid all he wanted was for his parents to get back together, and that he even tried to parent trap them at one point. And Amelia, being like the little shrink girl that she is, says like, I don't think it's really about them, I think it's about you because this is your cancerversary, and this day is supposed to be about you, but they're making it about them again, like they always did. Also, Parent Trap is one of my favorite movies ever. Just want to put that out there. At the hospital, Levi is late to meet Nico for the Halloween party because of this whole Halloween party planning situation that he's in, and this little kid comes up to him and asks if he's a doctor. He asks if the kid needs help, and he says that he needs a Halloween costume. This is also like the cutest kid I've ever seen in my fucking life. Like, this kid is the cutest kid I've ever seen in my fucking life. Meanwhile, Zola refuses to go to daycare because she says it's for little kids, and Maggie has a surgery or something, so she leaves her with DeLuca, who's a bit hesitant because of what happened with Zola in the morning. The girl who can't go out in the sun, her name is Rose, wakes up from her surgery and wonders if she misses Halloween, but Jackson confirms that she hasn't missed Halloween, but asks for the truth of what happened to her and how she got the burns. She says that she wants Dr. Alex, so he like was like, okay, I'll get Dr. Alex, and like kind of goes and gets into character and like pretends to be him. Dude, come on, tell me what really happened. And she like laughs and is into it. She says that her mom got her a cat, but the cat ran outside and she chased after it. And that's what happened. And he kind of like wants to tell her parents, but she asks him not to. And she says like, don't worry, I learned my lesson. This hurts so bad. I will never do it again. And he says, okay, just this once. I will not tell your moms what happened. Jackson also uses this as a learning opportunity to show DeLuca that kids usually do something for a reason. Meanwhile, Levi is showing his kid like all of the different Halloween options that he can be, and the kid is not having any of it. Some of the options were a superhero, a monster, and a robot, and Levi is getting super annoyed with the kid who doesn't want to be anything. You guys, this is the cutest shit I've ever fucking seen in my entire fucking life. The kid says, I want to be a sunflower. In the cutest way I have ever fucking seen in my entire life. I want to be a fucking... Oh my god. Levi says okay in like the cutest, most patient way I've ever seen. So cute. But also, where the fuck is this kid's parents? Meredith gets released from jail and offers the woman good luck. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Zola has gone missing and DeLuca goes looking for her and finds her in the gallery reading a book. She says that she doesn't want to go trick-or-treating and she just wants to wait for her mom. He asks if he did anything to upset her, and she says that her dad was the one who fixed the wings for her, and like, obviously we suspected that that was the issue because he did this before he died. She says that she doesn't want to forget him, which literally broke my heart. Oh my god. DeLuca says that she's not going to forget him and that nobody could forget him because he's a legend. And he is a legend. She asked if he knew him and he said no, but he's heard so many stories about him that it's almost as if he had knew him. I feel like this is an interesting way to show how much time has passed on the show and how many characters like never met each other and didn't actually know each other. And then he tells Zola a cute story about her dad that he heard, like a surgery story. At Alex's hospital, people keep talking about all the reasons why it's haunted, like with all the coding and stuff, and Alex says, the corpse bride is my wife, and the coding with bad blood. He says that he is exhuming the bodies, he called the authorities, and everything is on track. But the investors unfortunately heard him yelling about the burial ground, so that's not great. Back at the other hospital, Bailey calls Karasik the Halloween Grinch because he's been complaining about Halloween all day. He basically tells a story about his son David who had died and says that like David really loved Halloween and he wanted to be a stormtrooper the year that he died, but he died 2 weeks before Halloween. It was really emotional. I love this man so much. I love him so much. One of my favorite characters. I almost cried when he was explaining it, and because Bailey is super hormonal, she starts crying and he like gives her a Kleenex and like tries to comfort her. Despite everything, Alex gets the funding for Pac North and they liked him because he's really good with chaos apparently. Meredith goes home and she's literally still in her prison like all orange, and Zola says that it's a fun costume, which I thought was funny. Meredith says that prison was horrible, and Melia says that was always my experience. Teddy tells Hunt that she didn't have time to make the kids any costumes. Hunt is like, do you think that's why I brought these costumes? To, like, make you feel bad about it? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, no. I brought them because I figured you wouldn't have time to make costumes. But she has dressed up the babies as zombies using like hospital supplies, which I thought was pretty cute, but everyone was like disturbed by it. Levi dresses up as a sunflower, which is adorable. Nico shows up dressed as a vampire, and Helm says that that's kinky. Alex and Joe decide to renew their vows like in costume. He puts on like vampire fangs. She says that she is pregnant. She says for richer or pregnant, and then starts laughing. Alex is like traumatized and she says she was just kidding. Then at the very end we find out that Meredith posted the woman's bail in jail, which I thought was cute. She doesn't even like take the credit for it, but I'm pretty sure the lady knows that it was her. And that is the end of that episode. We have one more to discuss and then I need a fucking snack because I'm starving. Season 19, episode 4, Haunted. Our last and most recent Halloween episode. So at this point we have our new set of interns, which took me a second like to grow on me, and I do enjoy them, but it's just like nothing like our original magic crew, you know? Teddy and Hunt are hooking up and he says happy Halloween. So we know that it's Halloween. In Meredith's voiceover, she is talking about patients dying due to malpractice and this being like a fear for the patients and the medical staff. Bailey is dressed up as Princess Leia. See, she is really in the holiday spirit all of a sudden. Like, she kind of changed a lot as a character as well. But she is giving Levi a bunch of tasks to do and he is not in a good mood. Weber is doing a pumpkin carving contest for the interns, saying that this is going to give them skills to become better surgeons. None of them are interested in this contest though, and Griffith goes to the pit. Nick announces that they have freshly dead bodies to Meredith, who is excited about this. They are together at this point. Maggie says that she finds this conversation disturbing, but her husband, Winston, is down because apparently he doesn't have anything better to do today. Like, hello. It is Link's cancerversary again. I guess it's on Halloween Day. He wants to have dinner with Joe, and they're like single at this point, but flirting with each other. And they're living with each other and raising separate babies because Link is no longer with Amelia, but they have a baby together, and Joe adopted by herself after her and Alex divorced. She says that she can't hang out because she has an extra shift. At this point, I believe she's doing OB and general surgery, so she's really crazy busy, and she has a baby. And he says, no worries, this is what Tinder is for, so he's in a single era yet again. A kid arrives in an ambulance who has fallen off of a roof and hit concrete, and his friend hit water because they were jumping into a pool. They're both on something, if you know what I mean. Teddy asks why they always think they can fly when they're on this thing. Back at the pumpkin carving contest, Yusuda says that she is afraid of pumpkins. They get a page for a trauma in the lab for some reason, and they're all excited to leave. Weber is disappointed but lets them go. In the lab, Nick explains that they will be training on dead bodies, and Meredith explains that normally Hunt does this in the parking lot. The trauma training session, remember that iconic scene with April when she becomes like a trauma surgeon? Ugh, I miss early April, and she's not on the show at this point. I fucking hate most of the new everyone's so fucking boring. I'm like, I don't even give a fuck about their stories. Anyway, normally this is on dummies, but this time it is on real dead bodies. Fresh tissue. And Meredith says happy Halloween. The dad of the kid who jumped off the roof shows up and says that they're good kids and they wouldn't have been on something. Obviously, parents always say shit like that and defend their kids' behavior. The dad is in the trauma room when the kid starts coding. I hate when this happens. It's so annoying. He's like, do something! Like, fucking obviously they're going to. The one that hit water is super on something and says that they jumped off the roof because the bats were looking for them. He said that he was the one that told his best friend to jump to save him, but his best friend is the one that got seriously injured. Back at Meredith's house, Nick is wearing a sheet as a ghost costume. Him and Meredith go to drop Zola off at a slumber party, but she's a bit nervous because Zola has been dealing with anxiety lately. Pruitt, who is Bailey's adoptive daughter, shows up with Ben, and she is super excited. Bailey is super excited, but Ben is like a little weird and wary about it, which is interesting because he's the one that supposedly loves Halloween so much. He tells her that the kid is super tired, but Bailey is excitingly telling her about like zombie guts, and Ben looks concerned and she just is like cold spaghetti. The other dad of the kid who just hit water shows up, but when he shows up at the hospital, the kid is nowhere to be found. Outside of the hospital, a pregnant woman has just shown up, and Link and Joe are with her, but they look up and this kid is up on top of the ambulance. He screams, "Watch me fly," and jumps off, landing on Joe. Joe shares later on that the pregnant woman is safe and gave birth to a baby boy, but Joe's hand might be broken. And the teen that jumped shattered his leg. Link is super crabby to this kid and says that he's going to be in so much pain once what he's on wears off, and asks if it was worth it. He then realizes that he is 45 minutes to a Tinder date, and Teddy laughs and says that she already hates him. Bailey brings Pruitt trick-or-treating. I think I'm saying her name wrong. I don't know. Pruitt? Brings her trick-or-treating, accidentally brings her into the lab where they're doing like the training, and it's like, oh, okay, we're gonna go to dermatology. Winston is complaining to Hunt about Maggie because it's a lot like being married to her, but her also being his boss. He says that when he was heating up water, she yelled at him because he was doing it wrong, because he clicked 45 seconds, and she says that he should have done 44 seconds because then you don't have to move your finger from the 4 to the 5, and it's like, like easier? I thought that was kind of funny, but it definitely shows like how overbearing Maggie is. The interns are still working on the dead bodies and they're sweating so much. It's kind of gross. When the interns find out that Hunt was the one that stabbed the dead bodies. They're disgusted because they think that people donating their bodies for science is like such a sweet thing, and this is just like wrong and gruesome. Hunt says that they are not monsters, that all of the injuries are simulated, and apparently he already gave them a moment of silence and said prayers for them. So everything's fine, and this makes it totally okay. The interns are now going for round 2 with a different cadaver. In surgery, Griffith keeps getting text messages, and Maggie asks her if she has somewhere she needs to be. Meanwhile, Levi competes in Weber's contest, but he's not having a good time, and he says that he doesn't have time for this because he has so many other things to do. He's also like such a bummer, and it's just so annoying at this part in the show. I think he's like chief resident at this point. Weber tells him that he needs to relax and take a break because he can't keep yelling at nurses. He's literally so sassy and is like, whatever, I need to go back to work. Link is ranting to Teddy about how the whole world is changing because he was never on something like all of the kids are these days, and Teddy asks if something happened between him and Joe. The kid who jumped off the ambulance starts freaking out in the MRI machine, and Link goes in there to comfort him. Meanwhile, Maggie asks Griffith why she's been so distracted lately and why she got kicked out of her last intern program. Griffith said that she was having issues where she made a point on the case, was told she was wrong, but then a white student would make the same point and get all the credit. She talks about a lot of other racist behaviors that she was dealing with in this program, which Maggie can obviously understand. When she raised concerns about the behaviors that she was dealing with, she was told that she might be happier in a different program, essentially getting kicked out. She was seen as aggressive, but then she kind of freaked out and acted inappropriately by like throwing shit around, which got caught on security camera, and the footage got leaked. So that's why she's been looking at her phone, because she's been trying to get the footage taken down, and we actually saw that the other interns were laughing at this at the beginning of the episode, but they didn't know that it was her. Meanwhile, Weber goes to Joe's bar and finds Helm, who is working there. I really liked her air when she was working at Joe's, to be honest. I thought she was a really good bartender. He tells her that she doesn't belong there. She says that she just made $800 and that it would take her a lot to be convinced to come back. He says that they need her at the hospital, and she says that everyone at the bar needs her there too. And then she says, Happy Halloween. I think this is the third Happy Halloween. Third. At the hotel, Meredith is talking to Nick about how Zola's principal wants her to skip 2 grades, which is just what Maggie did, and Maggie was never happy with it. And that she's not sure if she wants Zola to do this because she doesn't want to like stifle her creativity. And Zola's been dealing with like so much anxiety lately that she doesn't want to make it worse. Zola then calls her having a panic attack and they leave to pick her up. Meanwhile, Link is complaining to Teddy that he missed his chance with Joe because he was so hung up on Amelia, and that he didn't want to ruin the friendship, but that she was into him and that he missed his chance, basically. Teddy says that it's for the best and that he should just sleep with other people until he gets over it, which is crazy advice. She rants about the fact that she got with her best friend, who was Hunt, and that everything is ruined because now his problems are her problems, because they had this like whole problem where he was doing illegal shit and they had to leave for a while and it was a whole situation. Meanwhile, Adams wins the training but decides that he wants to give everybody credit, and instead of doing the surgery alone, he wants all his friends to be involved as well, and everyone agrees to this because everyone is way too fucking nice to the interns for some reason. Okay, teamwork. Okay, participation badge. Like, what's going on? Meanwhile, Griffith shows Maggie the security footage of the video of her freaking out, and Maggie is super sympathetic. It makes her feel better, saying that it was just a bad day and that she does deserve to be in this program. Meanwhile, the ambulance kid apologizes to his best friend's dad. All is well in the world. Weber apologizes to Levi and says that he failed him and that he needs to pick up the slack because Levi is super overworked and he doesn't want this program to fail again. Because remember, there's a whole thing about like his program failing because of like putting the kids in the OR too early or something. Remember that? Meanwhile, Winston tells Maggie that if he wants to save their marriage, he needs to go into a different field because he can't do cardio with her. Like, he can't have her as his wife and boss, which is understandable. This is what happens when all the doctors only date other doctors. Like, none of them even have partners that don't like work in this fucking hospital. It's crazy. But Maggie does not like this idea at all. It turns out that Jo has a sprained wrist and Link is like super worried about her and telling her to take care of it, and she's making fun of him for this because she's literally a general surgeon and can take care of a sprained wrist. Then she gives him a bag of treats for his cancerversary, and I thought that was really cute. And then he says he will see her at home. Remember, they live together. I don't even want to talk about her fucking divorce with Alex. Like, that was devastating. I hate what they did to his character. I hate what they did to this relationship. I don't think it was necessary for him to go with Izzie. I think they could have written him off the show another way. I can do a different video on this if we want to talk about it more in depth. All the interns go to breakfast together, which was super cute. And I love that they're hanging out on like the gurneys in the hallway like they did in the first couple seasons, like original Magic did. So good. Love a full circle moment. Zola feels super guilty that Meredith had to leave and come pick her up, and Meredith says not to worry about this, that she would do it anytime, any place. And I love how wonderful of a mother Meredith is, just because she was never taught that by her own mom, but I just don't know how she's doing it because she was such a mess in the first like 8 seasons, and all of a sudden just like clicked out of nowhere when she became a mom. But she just like makes it look so fucking effortless. It's crazy. Zola's having stress about Alzheimer's because she's worried Meredith and Maggie are gonna get it because they have the gene. She asks when it's gonna get better, and Meredith says that it will get better eventually and that she just needs to find the right school with the right teachers. And that is the end! I don't really think that was the spookiest episode, but we definitely had a few spooky episodes, so let's rank them. I think the season 4 one with the kid with the ears is my number 1. Not just for nostalgia. I mean, it wasn't like the spookiest, most Halloween, but the whole like trick-or-treating thing was present in it. I just think it was so good. I think the beginning of the series is so good that it has to go in the number 1 spot. And I just feel like the show was so charming before it got super outlandish. In second place, I would have to put season 10's Thriller. Also a little bit for a nostalgia factor, but also I just think they went really hard on the Halloween, so it has to be high up on this list. I don't know, I just really liked all the characters in season 10. Like, we had new people, but everyone was enjoyable, you know, even if it was a little bit outlandish. Then I think I would go with the season 16 one because I really liked the dynamic between Alex and Jo, and I liked her costume as the corpse bride. As much as I don't love the hospital that Alex was in charge with, seeing them together was really great, and it was also very spooky. It was more based in reality than the previous one though. I didn't really like the season 15 or the season 19 one so much. I think season 19 goes next simply because I want the Day of the Dead one to go last, just because it wasn't Halloweeny, but that, like, it's not Halloween, it was the Day of the Dead, so like I'm putting it on this list like it's my own choice. But I think, yeah, that's that. That's all I have to say. I don't want to keep ranting. This video is already long enough. It's going to be like fairly minimal editing just because I want to get this video up and I want to get my Pretty Little Liars one up as well. But I think I'm going to keep my script and make like a better video next year with really good editing and like include maybe more information and more clips and stuff. This one's just kind of like more chatty, more casual, and I'll do like more of a video essay style next year when I have more time. I just like, I don't know, I didn't plan it out accordingly. I've been really focused on my ASMR channel, which I have a bunch of Halloween centered videos up there right now. If you're interested in that, it'll be in the description. But yeah, other than that, I will see you in my Pretty Little Liars video, and then I will be back. I'm going to start posting on a semi-regular schedule, but I do have lots of ideas for Christmas content. Like, I'm going to do definitely Grey's Anatomy Christmas, definitely Pretty Little Liars Christmas, but if you have any requests, let me know, and I will try my best to make it happen. I mean, I only have so much time in the world, but I do want to make it happen. Okay, bye! Love ya!